Welcome to Odds.com's NCAA football opening line show. Happy Monday, October 26th to all of you. Thank you for watching us here on Odds headquarters. We got a great group of cappers in the chat already locked in and ready to rock. And we got our experts here as well. John Ryan, Noli Knows, Connor Mack, all ready to get to work. We're going to break down all the Thursday and Friday games, and then our experts have picked the spots that they want to attack the most on Saturday. Let's get to work. We got Mark Unkefer in the house, Buzznuts, my man Robert Jerry ready to get to work. There's Maxwell Smart. Maxwell Smart's been destroying college football of late. Ashley Waite right there, ready to get to work as well. Bizarre giving us a 5-star lock in the Texas Longhorns. Michael Hunter, Gas Station Sushi. OG Lowbagger in the house. Dennis Garcia ready to go. What a great group. Let's get to work. First off, let's take a quick talk to our experts, see how they're doing. John Ryan, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. How are you doing?
I'm pumped. I'm ready to get to work. It was a much better week than the previous one, and I was very thankful. Very thankful. It was a roller coaster, man. I had so much money invested in Saturday, Sunday football, and it was just an absolute roller coaster ride. Holy shit. Noli Knows, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good, Jimmy. Same boat as you. I had a roller coaster in college football. I get a little too excited doing these shows. I end up hammering a bunch of games, but it was a roller coaster. Ended up with a little bit of profit, and I'm really excited. Dodgers 1 win away, baby.
Dodgers 1 win away, and I've hit 10 of my last 11 in MLB, so that's taking care of me when I need it the most. C-Mac, my man, how are you?
I'm good. Saturday, a roller coaster for me too, but ended up with a little bit of profit. It was a pretty good day. Yesterday was pretty good, 6-3.
Nice.
In NFL, and Dodgers won, so I'm a happy man.
Yeah, and we have a day off of baseball. We have Monday Night Football and NFL, but our focus right here is on college football. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We have Tom and Tom racing as well. There's Nut Flush Allen. All right, guys, let's get to work. Let's get to work right now. We're going to start on the 7:30 p.m. Thursday nighter, that being South Alabama Jaguars 3-2, 2-0 in the Sun Belt at Georgia Southern Eagles 3-2, 1-2 in the Sun Belt. Let's see what we are dealing with from an odds perspective. Sorry, let me move over here, get this rolling. All right. First off, South Alabama coming off their second straight win, 38-14 at home over the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. South Alabama opening up as 7-point dogs. That's down to 5.5. That's down to 5.5. There are 6.5s on the board as well. And this total opened at 50 or 49.5, depending on where you shop. South Alabama, Desmond Trotter, just 8 for 12 for 184 yards, but he was in complete control all game long. 3 of those 8 completions were touchdown passes. They have lost the last 6 of 7 on the road. Going into Georgia Southern, coming off 28-14 loss at Coastal Carolina. Shea Wertz had a terrible game, just 7 for 20 for 92 yards and 2 picks. Georgia uses the triple option, averages 248.8 yards rushing a game, and have won 6 straight home games. Noli Knows, the Thursday nighter, South Alabama, Georgia Southern. Take it away.
Yeah, game. This is a conference I really pay real close attention to. In Georgia Southern, you mentioned it with Shea Wertz, senior quarterback that actually went out in the game in the third quarter. He was grabbing his right leg, maybe looked like a hamstring. They really didn't disclose anything. They kind of just threw the backup in there and didn't mention much about it. They got shut down by a Coastal Carolina team that is very good up front, very physical, and had 10 days to prepare for that triple option. Here with South Alabama, they only got 5 days to prepare, so I'm not so sure how well they're going to be ready for it, but they will be seeing, I believe, a backup, because I didn't like anything I saw to Shea when he did get injured. It seemed like a non-contact injury. He kind of got pushed after he threw the ball, and he kind of stumbled back and grabbed his hamstring area, but really didn't get hit hard, didn't see anything too bad. So might be a non-contact injury, and we all know how that turns out. On the other side for South Alabama, I mean, they've been looking pretty good, but against inferior opponents. I mean, their coach is somewhat on the hot seat. third year out there, and they're asking for results. And if they don't get results, he's going to be gone. He's only their second coach ever in their history. But here, when I look at this game more so, I look at the pace of play and how things might transpire in this game. Georgia Southern plays at a very slow pace, 91st out of 101, only 62.2 plays per game. And here, missing their quarterback is going to be a big issue. Their backup, he can run just like Wirtz can, but he can't throw as well. So that's my big issue here. But I do believe in their defense. Their defense has looked pretty good. They did give up again a lot of points against Louisiana Monroe, but since then have stepped up big. And I like the way that they play and run the ball a lot. I think the only way you can look at this game is to go under the total. You look at last year, the total was 20-17. I still believe maybe South Alabama can be live here. I mean, they're battling and they're playing pretty good. I would take the points and go under. I haven't pulled the trigger, but I'm leaning real close to the under.
Leaning towards the under, heavier than a lean towards the South Alabama Jaguars. C-Mac, what do you think of this Sun Belt, Fun Belt spot Thursday evening?
Noli, you nailed it, my man. The words out of my mouth, everything you said. I definitely lean South Alabama, and as you've seen, this total's dropping. It's at 50.5 most places. If you get on it now. I see it dropping a bit more as the week goes here before kickoff. Both slow teams, slow pace, both like to run it. Defenses just average all the way around. I don't love it, but both ways. Lean with the points with South Alabama. I think it's a little too many. As you see, it came out at 7.5. That's dropped, and the total. But, I mean, watch it if it goes, because I could see this dropping a little bit more here. And see where that goes, the total as the week goes on. But if you really like the under, I'd get on it. Get on it now.
Maxwell Smart says, tell Noli that's a smart pick. Dennis Garcia says, Georgia Southern has controlled this matchup recently, 2017 last year, as Noli mentioned. Let's go to John Ryan. What do you think about the guys looking at the points and looking at the under?
I'm on the same side here. I'll just add a few different reasons why. You touched upon one of them, that Georgia Southern 6-0 against South Alabama in the last 6, and it's even more than that. But over those last 6, Georgia Southern is won by 22, 38, 15, 52 as a 5-point dog, by the way, 35. And then last year was the first time it was a close game. And I think what that tells you is that South Alabama has closed the gap that had been there with their opponent, Georgia Southern. The other factor, too, is strength of schedule, which they only had so well defined there. Georgia Southern hasn't played anybody remotely close to any of the opponents that South Alabama has played based on my power ratings.
Yeah.
And I think, South Alabama is they're playing with 6 years of revenge, and revenge is overrated. But in this case, I think South Alabama is doing well, and they know that they can take them down. I think they will.
So everyone leaning towards the points with South Alabama and the under South Alabama.
Both teams, the last 5 games, 4 out of 5 have gone over. I mean, under 2. Sorry. Just real quick. Both teams are under teams.
There you have it. There is the Thursday nighter that pops off at 7:30 p.m. South Alabama Jaguars, Georgia Southern Eagles. Let's move on to the night game on Thursday. That's the Colorado State Rams. First game of the year, opening up their season at the Fresno State Bulldogs, who came off a loss. This spot opens at Colorado State as minus 1 point favorites. That's moved to 1.5. And this total is anywhere between 57.5 or 58. So Rams open up their new season under new coach Steve Adazio. 6'5" senior quarterback Patrick O'Brien returns. Last year he threw for 2,803 yards, 13 TDs, 7 interceptions. Their best receiver last season, Warren Jackson, has opted out. They lost 3 starters from their offensive line. Last year they allowed 31.2 points per game, but owned one of the nation's top pass defenses, ranked 9th, allowing just 184.4 yards per game. Fresno State opened their season with 34-19 loss at home to Hawaii. Former Washington Husky Jake Hayner, 17 of 31 for 289 yards, 1 TD, but 3 picks. Their top receiver, Zane Pope, is hurt. They allowed Hawaii to put up 552 yards of offense. That was including 323 on the ground. And their top defensive player from last season, Justin Rice, linebacker, transferred to Arkansas State. And the hole that he left was enormous in game 1. Let's start off with John Ryan, Colorado State Rams, Fresno State Bulldogs.
Well, over the last 15 meetings, these teams, Fresno State's 5-10 straight up, 6-9 against the spread. The over has only been lined 6 times, and that's gone 4-2. So they haven't played each other every year until this back-to-back years, and then 2016 and 2015. So with that, they don't know each other as well as you might think. Recent meetings have been a loss by Fresno State has lost by 10 in 2019, 37 in 2016, close game in 2015 of losing by 3. One team has scored at least 30 points in each one of those games. With the only game that they didn't score over 30 was when Fresno State lost 37-0 in 2016. So I think this game goes to a lean on Colorado State. And Colorado State is backed by some really horrific trends working against Fresno State. Fresno State is 2-7 if the game is played on turf. And believe me, you might not think turf or grass means much in terms of ATS results, but it does. It has a very high correlation, and it still does in the NFL level too. Colorado State's 33-15 in road games after the 4th week of the season. So here again, I always use that area of week 4. If you have a team with a lot of offensive linemen on it, they're going to outperform teams that don't during the first 4 weeks. But after 4 weeks, everybody starts playing on a more even slate. So I think that definitely favors Colorado State in this matchup, and they win the game comfortably.
A comfortable win for Colorado State by John Ryan. John, what do you think of this total at 57.5 or 58?
It's right in line with previous meetings. I would lean towards the under if I had to bet it. It's just that way. I don't have much information on it to really come across with any intelligent selection at all. But being that Colorado State, you could lay the money line. I think at this point, since it's basically pick them for all purposes related to this, but everything that I'm looking at points to Colorado State, so it's a lean for me.
We have Colorado State as a move. John Ryan is thinking of pulling the trigger on. Let's go to CMAC. What do you think here? Mountain West, Colorado State, Fresno State.
Yeah, I'd lean to the under a bit here as well. And Colorado State. Hainer looked horrible last week. He had 3 INTs. I think O'Brien will do well. He'll do what he does best. He'll complete, probably have 200 yards, maybe more. They'll run it well. Like you said, Jackson's out. And this is their first game, so everyone, you don't know how they're going to come out, and these teams so far this year, especially when other teams have played. They still have Dante Wright. He's a good wide receiver. The Rams got a pretty bad defense. I mean, I'd still lean to the under. Their secondary is pretty good. They got a few guys returning. But I'd lean under and lean that. I didn't love this game at all, but those would just be my leans. Colorado State at home, getting, I don't know, -1 or Fresno's -1. Yeah, so take a money line if you like it, and I like the under a little bit, but I'm staying off. This is just no way I like it.
We've got both cappers backing Colorado State, but CMAC not going to get to the window on it. Let's hear what Noli Knows has to say. Colorado State, Fresno State.
I mean, Colorado State, not a team that looked too good last year, but still was able to handle Fresno State pretty handily. And my one concern here when I look at Fresno State is their defense, giving up 552 total yards last week against Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii's strong suit is their offense, but that's just ridiculous. And like you mentioned, the history between the teams and Colorado State returning the bulk of their starters, at least the core guys on both sides of the ball. They expect more success from them this year, albeit their win total doesn't suggest that. But nothing that I liked out of Fresno State in that game against Hawaii. Like Connor mentioned, the turnovers by the quarterback, not something I'm trusting here. I won't be making a move here. There's still a lot I have to see from Colorado State. Not really a team I want to be backing.
Gas Station Sushi says can't take Colorado State. Program in turmoil from Gas Station Sushi. And you have to expect Fresno to improve. They open in an ugly game. You have to think that they'll be better tonight. You have to. Or sorry, on Thursday night. But are you going to make a move on Colorado State Rams We have two guys making moves there. Anything? Are you going to get to the window with anything here, Noli?
No, I won't be touching this game. Still a lot that I need to be seeing between these games, between these teams. Really, I would lean towards the under, but I mean, with that defense, when you see those yardage, there's no way. So I mean, still a lot of unknown being it's game one. So I maybe not be watching that either.
All right, there you have it. There is the Thursday night late game that pops off at 10 p.m. Eastern. All right, we move on to Friday's action, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We have number 19th ranked Marshall thundering Herd 5-0, 3-0 in Conference USA at Florida International. Golden Panthers 0-3, 0-1 in Conference USA. Marshall's defense has been very strong. They're giving up an average of just 9.4 points per game. They open up as 23-point favorites, and this total opens up at 48. Freshman quarterback Grant Wells throwing for 1,110 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks. The running game for Marshall has been very effective, 197.8 yards per game. Brendan Knox has 556 yards on the ground through 5 games. FIU coming off an embarrassing 19-10 loss at home to Jacksonville State. They closed as 10.5-point favorites and lost by 9. Panthers are a confusing squad. They almost beat Liberty, who's looked so good this year. They almost beat Liberty in week 1, lost by 2 points. Stone Norton has only thrown 32 passes all year. They're averaging just 92.7 yards per game through the air, and they're a pretty easy team to plan for. It's Devontae Price, their running back, is very good, and he's the only one who can hurt you. And Jacksonville State knew that, so they just filled the box up. Yeah. And if you think Jacksonville State can fill the box up, wait till you see this Marshall defense. They're much better than Jacksonville State. 23-point favorites for Marshall. Let's go to Noli Knows. Do you agree with this big favorite?
I mean, I think that's a whole lot of points here for a Marshall team that really doesn't push the pace much. You know, they look to run the ball a lot. They run 43 plays, average 43 plays, 198 yards on offense, and they're able to stop the run. I mean, you'll hear it from me time and time again. Those are 2 key factors that I look for when betting unders. This is a great team to the under. I mean, albeit this year, not so much because of the price that you're getting, but here in this type of game, that's the way that I'm leaning towards. When you look at Florida International and Marshall, they don't run a lot of plays per game. Florida International is 88th out of 101, just running 63.5 plays per game. Marshall just running 66.2 plays per game. So to me, this is going to be a lower scoring game with Marshall pretty much dominating. Their defense has looked like they can take care of anybody, you know, average just 9.4 points per game. They were able to handle a really tough team in Appalachian State at home, but still, that was very impressive to me. It's going to be real hard for me to see Florida International score double digits in this game, and I don't see Marshall just taking off to score 40 or above in this game. The only way I'd be looking here would be the under.
Max is already on this under. He got under 48.5. There are 48s on the board as well. Let's move over to John Ryan, Marshall, FIU.
Well, this is a tough game to handicap, in my opinion. You have a winless Florida International team, and you have Marshall that's on one of the best rolls in program history. And I agree with Noli that based on my power ratings, this line is about 6 points too many, which is fine. But then what do? You take a winless team against one that's 5-0 and ranked? That's hard to stand in front of the freight train when the train's coming down the tracks. So for that reason, I'm a pass on this game. I think it's one that we'll learn a lot from, depending on how much Marshall wins the game by. So that's all I have to say for this one.
Interesting. Marshall, too many points, but John doesn't want to get
the winless underdog.
Yeah, sitting with your money on Florida International on a Friday night. Let's see what CMAC has to say here. Marshall, Florida International.
Yeah, I agree. Marshall's a way better team. It's a lot of points. Tulane, they're on the road. FIU isn't good. Like you said, FIU played well. Liberty, week 1, and then just have been horrible since. Marshall will just load the box. I've been on Marshall, was on him last year. Cashed me a bunch of tickets, took him against Appalachian State. This year, big, money line too. I love him. This spot is crazy. I can't take him. I think they went. I could see Noli like the under a little bit. I could see 31-10. 38-10, right on that range. They could probably name the score, but I don't like the backdoor cover. It's just a lot of points. You don't see Marshall a lot this high a favorite, and you're on the road at FIU. So I got a pass here.
All right, we have a pass, and Maxwell Smart on the under, and Noli Knows leaning towards the under. All right, let's stay with these Friday college football games. 7:30 p.m. Minnesota Golden Gophers did not look good. On Saturday at Terrapins.
Tell me about it.
Both teams coming off big losses, but Maryland takes a cake here. 43-3 beatdown at Northwestern. They were outgained 537 to 207. Talia, Tua's brother, looked awful. Jesus. Tagovailoa, 14 of 25, 94 yards, and 3 picks. Minnesota coming off disappointing 49-24 loss at home to Michigan. I was on him plus 3.5. Lot is expected of Tanner Morgan after 30 TDs and 7 picks last year. He did not look good. 18 of 31, 197 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Mohamed Ibrahim did look good. 140 yards, 2 TDs on 26 carries. Rashad Bateman, 9 catches for 101 yards. I mean, he's excellent, but they got beaten bad. This is a tricky spot. 2 teams coming off bad losses here. Minnesota is 20.5-point favorites on the road. That has gone down to 20 and 19.5 at some books. And this total 59, 59.5, or 60. John Ryan, Big Ten, Golden Gophers, Terrapins.
Well, I had the Gophers, as everybody knows, and it was pretty disappointing to see what happened. And while I was watching the game, I was trying to figure out whether it was Michigan's defense that I had underestimated and they were playing lights out, or whether it was the change in offensive. They have a new offensive coordinator at Minnesota. His name's Mike Sanford. And last year they ran an RPO, run pass option, and it worked well. And I'm not sure why they changed and didn't stick with it. I guess, every offensive coordinator tries to match the skill sets appropriately. But you're right in what you said. Morgan looked really, really confused at times. And the wide receivers for Minnesota, last year I saw them as being elite. They got separation from the defender within 2.5 seconds of the snap. I didn't see that in this game. Michigan had so much post-snap movement that I think that alone got Morgan looking down the field with deer in the headlights, literally. There was times that he looked sharp. The Minnesota ground game actually pushed the Minnesota defense around as well. So I can't bring anything right. There's no takeaways from this game for me. I think that if Michigan goes up against Ohio State, they're gonna get absolutely destroyed at the line of scrimmage, and we all know what that means. But I do think in this game, Minnesota, this is, you get a slapped in the face in the Big Ten, and the teams that get slapped in the face, they get their act together, the focus is there, and they'll come out and take care of what appears to be a really, the new, I hate to even compare them to Rutgers of past, but it seems like Maryland is that new, they have that new icon on their jersey. So I like Minnesota this week. They're supported by playing against underdogs of 10 to 20 points after being outrushed by 150 yards in their last game. Simple system, trying to keep it simple for the show, but that's won 64% of the time over the last 5 seasons. And I'm confident with Minnesota. That's going to be a best bet for me.
Wow, a best bet. Is this a first half and full game double up possibility, John?
Yeah, I like the first half too, for obvious reasons. That if I'm right with the slap in the face and Maryland not feeling so good about themselves. And by the way, Northwestern beat them by 40 points. That was the first time that happened since 1970. So Northwestern beating a conference opponent by 40 or more hasn't happened since 1970. So, I guess kudos to them. And I won't waste time going over the number of games where they lost by 40 since 1970, but it's extensive.
Minnesota, Maryland, best bet material for the Golden Gophers from John Ryan. C-Mac, what do you think of that?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Is Northwestern really that good? And is Maryland this bad? I think Maryland is this bad. They've been bad last year. And Tua's brother with 3 picks. He did not look good. I'm hemming and hawing here on this one, Jimmy, because if I got to take it, I got to take it now because I don't want it to go over 3 touchdowns. So, and I'm looking at the first half, like John said. I think Minnesota, and I can't believe I'm going back to them right now. But in this spot, Maryland was really bad. I think Fleck has him ready to go. I think Morgan plays better. Definitely like the first half, and I might roll full game. Can you give me the end here or later today? Because I might have to jump on this. I know it's going to go over. As through the week, it'll go up. They'll be favored. Minnesota will be favored, I think, by 24, 23. It'll go up. So that's my lean here. More than a lean. I might play it.
More than a lean to a play. And John Ryan, best bet material. Let's hear what Noli Knows has to say about this spot. Big Ten action on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the stats, you see a lot of offense on the last few games. I mean, for the opponents, each team giving up over 450 yards. You look at Maryland giving up 537 yards. And when you watch that game, Northwestern was pretty much able to do whatever they wanted. We wanted to run the ball. They wanted to throw the ball. They could do pretty much whatever they want. And that's a run-first team, a team that is looking to produce more offensively. But Maryland's defense looked awful. And Minnesota, Michigan, I think, was a little bit underrated going into this game, more so than Minnesota being overrated. Minnesota did come out, I think, a bit flat to begin the game. They were able to get going a little bit on their offense. But here in this particular game going between these two teams, you look at last year's matchup, 52-10 for Minnesota, and I expect more of that. There's nothing that I liked out of Maryland, whether on the offensive side or defense. On offense, they only rushed for 64 yards, only threw for 143. I mean, I do like Northwestern's defense, so I like what they're capable of doing. I don't think Minnesota's defense is that great. I would lean towards the over. And I would lean towards Minnesota, but just not comfortable laying those points.
The team total is not out yet. Michael Overlina asking about the team total here. So don't know what it's going to be. Dennis Garcia says it'll be around 40 and was thinking about that angle as well. The team total over for mini team total over. All right, there you have it. That's Friday night, Big Ten action, Minnesota, Maryland. Maxwell Smart saying Minnesota team total will be something I look to get on. And let's move on to the 9 o'clock spot. East Carolina Pirates at Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. East Carolina 1-3, 1-2 in the American. The Golden Hurricanes are 2-0 in the American, 2-1 overall. And let's see what we're dealing with. Tulsa opening up at minus 18.5 and now minus 18. This total sitting at 59.5. We were all on them last week, and it was an easy casher. East Carolina is coming off a bye week. Last played 2 weeks ago in 27-23 loss at home to Navy. Holden Ahlers missed Saturday's game. That's their junior QB. Missed Saturday's 27-23 loss to Navy after testing positive for COVID-19. He's been cleared. He's back in action. Their backup, Mason Garcia, struggled to get any offense generated. 10 of 20 for 194 yards. Their Ahlers throwing for 673 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 51% passing. It's also coming off that big 42-13 win at USF. They were completely in control all game long. Very good on the defensive side of the ball. Held them to 13 points, 305 yards. This will be their first home game of the season. They've started out with 4 road games. Zach Smith throwing for 671 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks. Tulsa scoring just 27.7 points per game. Now, they're allowing just 18.3, but for a team that's averaging just 27.7 points per game, can you trust them as 18-point favorites? And that's what this will come down to. Let's hear what CMAC has to say about that.
Yeah, that's the big key too, I believe, Jimmy. 18-point favorites. I think this drops a little bit as the week goes on. Zach Smith is very average, and I don't know. I don't trust Zach with an H. So, I was on Tulsa last week, and they look great. But like I said, South Florida's horrible. Tulsa's got a great linebacker, Zaven Smith. He's unreal. He's the best. He'll be the best player on the field, I think. Definitely on defense. East Carolina could put up some points. Like you said, their QB will be back. This screams backdoor cover. to me, if it drops a lot, I just don't like the spot here with Tulsa. So I'm going to pass.
A pass from CMAC. Let's go over to Noli knows East Carolina, Tulsa.
I mean, yeah, when you initially look at the 27.7 points per game for Tulsa, I think that's a big you don't really get the full idea because they faced the Oklahoma State team really good defensively where they only put up 7. You know, the last 2 games they put up 34 and 42 respectfully, and I think that they can cover this number because of the inability of East Carolina to pretty much defend anything. Giving up over 200 yards rushing, over 245 yards passing, good for 458 total yards given up. And there's a big discrepancy when you talk about defense. You know, this defense for Tulsa, they faced some much tougher opponent in UCF who likes to throw the ball, and they were able to shut them down completely in the second half. So when you look at the numbers, giving up 217 yards passing, it doesn't really show how dominant their defensive passing can be. I think East Carolina is in for a tough one, and I think Tulsa can cover the number. Here, what I lean more towards is the over adjustment in the total. I think 60 is a bit high, or 59.5 is a bit high for a Tulsa game. Tulsa game right now, they went over the total last week, got to 55. The total was 52. I think that's more so when they looked at last year. Tulsa was able to handle East Carolina, do whatever they wanted to. It was 21-3 in the first half, ended 49-24. So just kind of let off the gas pedal late in the game. I would look for an under, maybe a first half under here. A little too used to baseball right now, but maybe look for a first half under here.
Max says this game stays under 56, and it's at 59.5 right now. John Ryan, what do you think of this spot in the American?
Well, I think if you listen to last week's show, I like this team quite a bit from Tulsa, and they did play an inferior opponent last week, but took care of it, and they covered easily. In this game, the line right now implies a final score of roughly 39-21, which means that Tulsa is going to score more than 28 points. And the machine learning tools I have has a very high probability that Tulsa scores more than 28. So if you believe that, just know that Tulsa is 26-9 with 2 pushes for 75% winners since 2015 when they scored 28 or more points. Further, the defense is averaging 2.75 turnovers per game. In other words, they're forcing the opponent into turnovers. And there we have a situation that works against East Carolina, where they are 7-16 against the spread when facing what I would call a solid defensive unit that's forcing an average of 2.5 or more turnovers per game. So at the end of the day, it's Tulsa again.
Okay, real quick, John. So how many times does your model, would you say they were 26 and what, Tulsa?
29-9.
20, let me get the right page. 20.
How many times was that when they were more than double-digit favorites? Is that as double-digit favorites?
I can do that. Just give me 1 second here.
Just a quick question. And real quick, Jimmy, one more note on this. Yeah. If this falls, maybe you like Tulsa. It's at this line right now. There's already a 17. If this drops and you like Tulsa, that'd be the go. 17 is like 21, 14. That's kind of a number in football. So if you like Tulsa, this line drops a little bit, and you like them here.
I really love the way you do that in your capping, Connor. If the line gets to a certain point, before I locked in. So after the 12 o'clock game started, and I got to sit with my notes and everything we did in the morning show, and sit and look at the afternoon games. I had a big note from you saying that you were going to bet Wake Forest if it got to 10.5, and it was at 10.5, and then they went outright. So keep that up. That was a great play, Connor. Keep up the comments on when you would move on a bet. John, what did your model say to C-Mac's question?
It's a good point that he brings up. They're 15-11 when they're double-digit favorites and scoring 28. They're 15-11 against the spread, which is 58%, which brings it down. So that is a good point. It does help the over in that situation. They're 16-10 to the over for 62%. So not outrageous numbers, and I don't think it necessarily disqualifies Tulsa. maybe for one of the next shows, I'll take what he said and we'll leverage that idea a little bit and add in strength of schedule of the opponent, where the opponent ranks, because we would make this East Carolina team inferior by a pretty large margin to Tulsa. So there's a lot we can explore with this.
I like it. And Noli wanting to move on the under. Noli, do you think you're going to get to the window on this under?
I'm not sure. Typically, when I look for unders, I want two defensive teams, and East Carolina is far from that. So might not. So just a lean for me right now.
All righty. Just a lean. Okay, let's move on. So possible moves on Tulsa and under, and that's where we stand. Then we move on to the late game Friday night, 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Hawaii Rainbow Warriors open their season with a big win at Wyoming Cowboys, who opened their season with a tough overtime loss. Hawaii put up 332 yards on the ground, their 34-19 win at Fresno State. We talked about that earlier in the show. Their quarterback Cordero connected on 20 of 30, 229 yards, and rushed for 116 yards and 2 TDs. The secondary for Hawaii was very good against Fresno State, forced 3 picks. Wyoming coming off a 37-34 overtime loss at Nevada. They struggled on the defensive side of the ball against the Wolfpack. They allowed them to score 37 points, rack up 496 yards of offense. Here we go, Mountain West action. John, you are high on these Wyoming Cowboys. Are you going to back them here as 2 or 2.5 point home dogs?
I will pass on this game, even though, based on what you said, is still true. There's a few systems that favor Hawaii in this game, and one of them is you play against all teams, in this case Wyoming, that are lined as 3-point favorites or 3-point dogs within that range of 3 points of pick. And they're coming off a road game where both teams scored 31 or more points, and they're playing an opponent who's off a double-digit road win. So Hawaii is that last part. They had a tremendous win to start the season. Wyoming had to come from behind just to get it into overtime, in which they won, right? My mind just went blank.
Sorry.
Wyoming Cowboys. They
lost 37.
They lost in overtime.
Yeah, 37-34 in the match. So you cashed your ticket because you had Wyoming plus 3.5. They stormed back late to take it to overtime.
I think it was – I'm going to have to check that, Jimmy, because I think it was minus 2.5 when we were talking on the show. But we can check that later. It doesn't matter at this point. But, for that reason, I don't like the situation that Wyoming is in to back them. And I just – I don't bet on states with an H in them. Just kidding.
Okay. We have Viper leaning towards Wyoming. We have cash action bets on Wyoming. Let's talk Noli knows and see what he thinks about this Mountain West battle, Hawaii, Wyoming.
Yeah, I think a lot of the question marks for Wyoming kind of came out last week. They knew they'd be physical up front on the defensive end, but there's the question marks of the DBs. They give up 420 yards passing against Nevada, something that really not really what Wyoming is known for. They're known for shutting it down. On the offensive side, really weren't able to get too much going either. I didn't like their offense as much, but still ran for 128 yards. And in this game, I mean, you look at what Hawaii was able to do defensively. It looks pretty good in the turnovers, but they still gave up 289 yards passing. But here, the way these two teams match up and being the fact that it is in Laramie, it is a different type of game for Wyoming when they play at home. They are a very good home team. They have to deal with elevation when going to Wyoming. And to me, they're going to look to play a more physical type of game and change the way that Hawaii plays. You look at last year, the total went 17-13 total in a game that was 3-3 at halftime. I expect a much lower scoring game between these two, and I believe maybe the total goes up because of overreaction. So I'm going to sit back and wait and see if I can get maybe a 57.
And Sean Chambers broke his left fibula. I'm answering Ron Crawford's question. So that happened on the third play from scrimmage against Nevada, and he's broken left fibula. He's going to be out for a while. That's a 4 to 8 weeks injury. And Gerald Martinez says, yep, it's the Levy Williams show. All right, there you go. Hawaii, Wyoming. So at this point, no real looks. C-Mac, is there anything you like here, Hawaii, Wyoming?
Now, the only lean would be on the under. With him being out, the quarterback Chambers, they're still a run-driven team. It will be slow. That's why I lean under. And Hawaii in the past few years, it's not like the Hawaii of the past. Chuck it all around. They've been a lot more unders this past year.
Yeah, they ran the ball.
They're definitely turning into a team like that. I'd lean towards the under here. And Wyoming's got a great offensive line. It's kind of rough to go off the first game. Their defense did give up a lot to UNR, which going in, I thought UNR was just – I don't think they're very good. So it was a little disappointing for Wyoming because they played some really good games last year and some duds. So it's hard. A lot of these Mountain West teams do it. Like we talked about Fresno, Colorado State. We see a lot of 4-8 teams out of this conference. It seems like 5-7. That's just it's hard to go week to week because I hear in Vegas I'm up on all these teams all the time, and yeah, don't love this one, but small lean on the under, and it's dropped, right? I had 57.5. It's down to 56.5. Yeah, most places. Yeah.
Dean has a great note. C-Mac says temperature in Laramie on Saturday expected to be 48 Fahrenheit. Don't think it's not going to play a factor for a team from Hawaii.
There we go. I agree with it totally.
So, Noli, do you think you get to the window with this under?
Yeah, this one I'm leaning towards real hard. I more so like it. Mentioned weather and altitude when you go over there, and then C-Mac kind of alluded to it. You look at the rushing attempts, 53 rushing attempts for Hawaii last week. So a lot heavier to the run, and that favors the Wyoming defense. Only gave up 76 yards rushing, and that is their strong suit. So if they can stop the run, they'll be able to try to take control of this game. This was a game that I might be pulling the trigger on.
All right, those are all the Thursday, Friday college football action. So that begs the question: Thursday, Friday best bets. Thursday, Friday best bets. John Ryan, let's start with you. What's your best bet on Thursday, Friday NCAAF action?
I think I mentioned it earlier, and I have to go back and look at the. Hold on one second. All right, so my best bet was Minnesota.
Minnesota is the best bet. Maxwell starts saying no. Southern Illinois, South Missouri State. No, there's no line yet, so no, we're not going to touch on that one. John Ryan, best bet, Minnesota, full game. All right, C-Mac, Thursday, Friday, best bets.
I'd have to go Minnesota too. That was the biggest one that stuck out to me, and that it's under 21. Minnesota better come through, or Minnesota's got problems with me. So you're making me do this right now. So that's under 21. So that'd be my go here.
Noli knows best bets Thursday, Friday.
I think I'd take South Alabama, Georgia Southern under.
South
that would be my second one.
Under, and C-Mac backing that up. All right, great job, you guys. There is our Thursday, Friday NCAA football action. Let's move on to Saturday. We are going to start with Temple at Tulane. Let's see what we are dealing with here. Tulane opening up at -2.5, and that is shot up already to 5 or 5.5. This total sitting at 61.5 or 62.5. Temple coming off 41-29 loss at Memphis. They gained 500 yards, but turned the ball over 4 times. Anthony Russo has passed for 863 yards, 9 touchdowns, but that 6 interceptions is a glaring statistic. Tulane coming off their 3rd straight loss, 51-34 at UCF. Tulane gained 340 yards of total offense, but gave up 689 yards to the Knights. The over is cashed in 5 of the 6 Green Wave games this year. Let's go, Connor Mack, Temple, Tulane.
You nailed it, Jimmy. This one, when it came out, just stood out like a sore thumb at 54.5. I got it at 58.5 last night. It's up to 61, 62 already now. I'm way on the over. If you look at these teams all year, they both can't stop anybody. Like you said, the Green Wave 689. I was on the Memphis over at pushed at 70, which I was a bit surprised, and I didn't get below 70. I think I could have got a 69.5. Bothered me that I pushed. But this is one that stood out right out of the gate to me, and I took it. I still think it's got value here at this number, and I think it continues to go up through the week. So
We have
you
Connor
stole everything out of – you said everything.
Connor on the over in Temple, Tulane. John Ryan, what do you think of Connor's move on the over? Is there anything you're going to be doing Temple, Tulane?
There's nothing on this game for me. I definitely like his idea with the over, though, because of the defenses. The weather in Tulane, I think you may want to check because I think there's a hurricane that's building, that's heading into the Gulf, so you never know with that. But especially this week, the Midwest is supposed to change dramatically weather-wise, and that can affect totals too. But in this game, I'm just going to be a pass, and I'll let Noli provide some intelligence.
Noli, can you provide that for us?
I don't know. I try, might be lacking in that department, but here in this game, I could try to break it down a little bit. What I see is the lack of defense. You talk at Tulane, giving up 480 yards of offense per game, really not going to get it done, and predominantly through the air, 326 yards. And for Temple, they've looked better than I thought offensively. They are throwing the ball pretty good, and defensively, not really indicative of what they typically are. They typically are a much better defensive team, but haven't really showed that this year. Again, I talked about that game last time with Memphis. I hate seeing this type of defenses, and they're pretty much able to do whatever they want. You look at Tulane, not one of their games or their last 4 games have stayed under 70. And here you're getting in the 60s. I think over is the only look.
Over.
Yeah, I was surprised when the total came out. It was just wild. That was like my eyeballs huge. 54.5, and I got a 58.5. I just thought it was crazy. But what do I know?
Agreed.
And it's already shot up. As you said, Bet 365, they wait to put out their opening line. So they waited until 61.5. Ron Crawford saying the Hurricanes hitting Wednesday at 7 p.m., so it should be long gone for this spot. All righty, that's Temple at Tulane. Little American Conference action. Let's move on to a big game here. Number 5th ranked Georgia, 3-1 in the SEC at Kentucky, 2-3 in the SEC. Georgia coming off a bye week. They were last seen in a 41-24 loss at Alabama. They were outscored 21-0 in the second half. Must have been a tough week of practice for them. Prior to that loss, Georgia defeated Arkansas, Auburn, and Tennessee all by at least 21 points. Kentucky coming off a 2010 loss at Missouri. The Wildcats were held to just 145 yards of total offense by the Missouri defense. Terry Wilson, their quarterback, passed for 35 yards. Just 5 yards.
35, baby.
And now you face a very angry Georgia squad. Let's see what we are dealing with here. Georgia opening up at minus 14.5. That has moved to 15 in a couple books, and we got a low total at 44 or 44.5. Let's go. John Ryan, take it away. SEC battle, Georgia, Kentucky.
Yeah, I think Georgia is going to have the infamous bad taste in their mouth in this game. They always seem to have that one game that just completely gets away from them, and now it's out of the way. In terms of the betting line here, it's a confusing line to me because I actually had them lined higher, and it's made me hesitate a little bit on just getting them right on the opening. I'm just pulling up the chart here to talk more about it. What rotation number are they?
This is, I just had it right here. The rotation number is 195, 196.
Yeah, it's the last one on the. That's why I couldn't find it. But anyway, Georgia's 18-5 against poor passing teams, and you just said that I think he had 35 yards passing, which is certainly better than 34 yards passing. And passing teams that are averaging 150 or less passing yards per game. So that's 18-5 right there in Georgia's favor. In terms of the rankings here, you got Georgia vastly better on both sides of the ball. And I know there's a lot of people out there that think Kentucky has a pretty good defense. but maybe not against this Georgia offense that you can just pound the ball between the tackles and use power running in this matchup all day long. This is a game where I wouldn't be surprised if the number of passes that Georgia threw is 25 or less. Georgia's 35th in points per game at 33. Kentucky is 68th at 24.4. Georgia's defense, in scoring defense, despite getting lit up, they are still number one in the SEC, allowing 19.5. And Kentucky is 22nd nationally, allowing 20. But those two rankings are pretty darn close, but I don't think they're close on the field. I just don't. And I think Georgia is going to win this game and cover by at least 7.
Interesting. But you see that opening line at just 15 or 14.5, and it makes you tentative?
Yeah, because I have the guy, based on power ratings, I have it lined at 11.5. So the fact that it came out higher tells me two things. Either I'm dead wrong on this, or that the bookmakers are anticipating the bad taste in the mouth and the public is going to be jumping on Georgia because they're coming off a loss. And you don't have to read much to know that Georgia is better than University of Kentucky on paper. So I think the lines maker kicked that right out of the chute to get balanced action.
All right, let's go to CMAC. What do you think of this spot? SEC battle, Georgia, Kentucky.
Georgia has got the way better team here. And the spread's indicative by the total here. What do you have as the total real quick, Jimmy?
44.5.
Yep.
44.5. So they're thinking Georgia wins. I don't love it. I think Georgia's the superior team. I do think they win here. It's 2 touchdowns. Kentucky has no offense. They haven't done anything that want to make me back them as a double-digit dog, which I like. And, yeah, with Georgia coming off a loss, I don't want to step in front of them here. It's Georgia or pass, in my mind.
Georgia or pass. Noli knows. What do you think of this spot, Georgia, Kentucky?
I mean, right away when I look at these two teams matching up, I mean, I want to jump on the under right away, but they set it at a number where I really have to be a little bit more cautious now. I mean, they mentioned it in the chat. Kentucky really hasn't been able to do anything offensively. They relied heavily on their defense. You look at their win against Tennessee, there was 2 pick sixes in that game to be able to produce the 34 points. Even when you see 24.4 points per game, it's not really who they are. I don't think they really can score that much week in and week out. And in this game, I think that they know that they can't keep up with the Georgia offense. I expect them to run heavily, take a lot of clock off, run a lot of clock, take a lot of it off the board. And I think the only way to look for me would be the under. I don't know if Georgia can cover the 15. I would expect them to, because Kentucky hasn't done anything offensively, going against a really tough defense, only giving up 65.5 yards rushing. So you look, they're not able to pass the ball on Kentucky's side. The only thing they can do is rush. Now they're facing the best rushing team in the nation. It's a very tough ask for this Kentucky team. Might be getting shut out this week. I still be leaning towards the under. If I get 44.5, I think I still might pull the trigger on this one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting breakdowns from everybody here. Is Georgia first half like Michael Irvelina's thinking? Is that something that you'd be interested in, John?
I guess you have to assume that Kentucky's not going to score 14 for the game, and therefore they're not going to score a touchdown in the first quarter. When it's mismatches like this, it's more likely that the game maybe starts out with Georgia scoring on the first drive, and then Kentucky looks good on the first drive, but stalls in the red zone, gets a field goal. Then all of a sudden it's 14-3 after another Georgia score. That's a pattern that I think that has happened to me when I back a double-digit dog and I see them get the field goal first. It's not a good sign because that's a 4-point play as I call it. That third down situation where the defense held them, that's a 4-point play. And Georgia has the ability to do 4-point plays every single time in the red zone. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kentucky kick 4 field goals in this game and lose 31-12. So the first half is, it's tough. I don't have any good insight on that to really nail down a bet. But I like Georgia for the game quite a bit.
Georgia, full game for John Ryan. Okay, let's move on to a Big Ten matchup. Michigan State, Michigan, number 13th ranked Michigan. This game pops off at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Michigan State coming off 38-27 loss at home to Rutgers. Wow. Rocky Lombardi, 31-43, 319 yards, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. Michigan coming off the 49-24 win at Minnesota. They looked very, very strong. And Joe Milton, 15-22, 225 yards, 1 TD, in complete control throughout. John Ryan, Big Ten matchup, Michigan State, Michigan.
Yeah, I have to tell you, when I gave Rutgers out last week on the show, it was, and then go to the actually bet it. It was the scariest bet I've made probably in 10 years, because I just, there's people listening to this, and you make a call that I think was, like, in hindsight, pretty bold given Rutgers' history. And I felt like I had won the Super Bowl when the score was 7-0 in that game. And Rutgers benefited from a lot of miscues by Michigan's State team that is, I don't even know if they're a Power 5 caliber team right now. They could actually be the same as Maryland. And I felt that way before the game, that they were just a lost program right now. They had 7 turnovers in the game. And Rutgers tried to help them out by giving them 3 of their own, but it didn't matter. I think it was 3 of the scoring drives by Rutgers were 30 yards or less. So it's a great win for the program. It really is. And as we mentioned earlier in the Michigan game, it's hard to tell the defense and where they're at as it applies to Ohio State and Penn State. When it applies to Michigan State and what we saw last week, this is going to be another one of those 30-12 type games. I don't see how in the world Michigan State, that's not even laying an egg what they did last week. 7 turnovers should never happen at a Big 5 program, but it does, and they respond. But this is a big turn down for Michigan State this year, and I think Michigan will easily win this game. Joe Milton, the quarterback for Michigan, did pretty well last week. I look at a stat called expected points, which is EPA, and he has the high now for any team this year at 0.63. And we won't go into what that actually is, but that's a pretty good measure of quarterback efficiency. So the fact that he did that in his first start was very, very good, with the caveat that he didn't have to do too much because Michigan had a great day on the ground. He threw for he's 15 for 22 for 225, and he dropped back only 7 times. The rest of them were on play action, and because of the running game, he had all day to throw. They also have 4 sophomores on the Michigan team to keep an eye on, and running backs that I noted. These 4 freshmen or sophomores accounted for 192 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game last week. The other thing I thought was really good was that Milton distributed the ball to 9 different wide receivers, and 7 of them were freshmen or sophomores. So this is Harbaugh's best game, believe it or not, against a ranked opponent since being at Michigan, and by many measures. So maybe we underestimated Michigan last week in preseason, and they're going to be better. But I don't think you're going to find out this week when they destroy Michigan State.
I like that breakdown. Very interesting. 25-point favorites for 13th ranked Michigan in this in-state rivalry. Let's go to Noli Knows. This total at 55. Is anything interest you here?
Nothing out of Michigan State that's what's keeping me off this game. That defense looked really bad last week. They were pretty much giving up a lot of yards both through the ground and the air. And for Michigan, the offense looked really good. They looked a lot better than what I expected. And you look at last year, 44-10, Michigan win. I expect something similar here. Nothing I like out of Michigan State, and Michigan looking a lot better than what I expected early on. Harbaugh, like Gas Station said, he likes to beat up on inferior opponents. So he will run the score up, and I expect him to do that here.
All right, C-Mac. But at this point, Noli, no move?
No, I'm not going to mess with that. I mean, 25 points is quite a bit. And then at the 55 total, I mean, I would expect it to be right around there and maybe sneak over in the 60s.
C-Mac, Michigan State, Michigan.
Yeah, I can't believe Michigan State was that bad, looked that bad. There's nothing here. I can't lay 25 with Michigan, with Harbaugh. No way. They look good, and you didn't know what was going to come out of that game. That's why there was a lot of unknowns, but they're Michigan. They always get big recruits. And that's why I like Minnesota, because last week, but it was going into week one. There's a lot of ifs, but they had more experience, I thought. But Michigan played great. If you want to lay the 25, go ahead, but I'm nowhere near laying that here. It's a pass.
All right, so nobody getting to the window at this point on Michigan State. Michigan. Let's move on to 3:30 p.m. Eastern games. And Dennis Garcia giving us a final score 24-7. Michigan. Give me Sparty and the under. It's from Dennis
You want
Garcia.
to know what I think the score is going to be?
What's that?
55-14.
Okay, well, we have a big difference.
All right, you know what I think it's going to be?
That's what the machine
63-10.
learning stuff says.
No.
No, I love it.
I just think it's just going to be like, and then it's nothing against the gentleman that gave his prediction either. I just think this is, David against Goliath again.
All righty,
Wow.
There's our 12 p.m. action. We're going to move to a few 3:30 games. Let's start with TCU, Baylor. TCU 1-3, 1-3 in the Big 12. And Baylor 1-2, 1-2 in the Big 12. TCU coming off 33-14 loss at Oklahoma. After 3 weeks off due to the positive COVID test, Baylor finally gets back in action, and it took them a while to get their legs under them. They lose 27-16 at Texas. They were down much worse than that and made a couple late plays to give any Baylor backers hope. I was a Baylor backer who got a bad number, so I did not cover with the 11. Noli knows Big 12 action, TCU, Baylor. And sorry, let me give you the odds right now on this spot, TCU versus Baylor. What are we getting here? Sorry, I can't find it. There we go. TCU 3-point road favorites in this total at 49.5. Take it away, Noli.
Yeah, when you look at this game, automatically when you look at Baylor, everybody's going to think over, but not really what they've been doing the last few years. The defense has been a lot better the last few seasons, and I've been riding this under train, and I'm going to continue to do that here in this game with TCU. TCU's only put up 14 points the last 2 games, respectively, and here against Baylor, they face a tough opponent who's getting everybody back healthy this week. This is the first week in which they're going to have every single player back from COVID and be able to practice all week. I've been real impressed with the way they've been able to play their defense, and they continue to try to run the ball, albeit only averaging 98 rushing yards per game. TCU, they lost 4 offensive linemen from 2019, and it's shown this year. They haven't been able to really sustain drives. And Baylor on the other side, they move at a much slower pace than we're accustomed to. And I continue to get too many points. They have adjusted here, going down to 49.5, but I just don't see that as being enough an adjustment. I'm going to continue riding this Baylor under train at under 49.5.
Gas station sushi with you on this under train. Likes it. C-Mac, what do you think of Noli on the under? Are you making a move here? TCU, Baylor.
I'm not, but that'd be my lean here. Baylor got me last week. I got to lay off. I think they get better, and it's a little intriguing here. I don't really love TCU. I stayed off TCU. I thought the number was too short at home, and Oklahoma took care of them. And I'm not big on Oklahoma, and we'll talk about that later. I haven't been in the game they play. So this is just kind of a tough one, and it's right at 49.5. It's not the number I like, so it's a pass.
Dennis Garcia also on the Baylor under train. John Ryan, TCU, Baylor. Take it away.
I don't have a feeling for this game, but I can tell you that Baylor, based on the metrics, is a better team. Points per play, Baylor's defense ranks 24th in the nation. They're going against a TCU offense in points per play that ranks 78th. And on the other side of the ball, Baylor is 54th offensively in points per play, going up against a defense that, in my opinion, is pretty suspect, ranking 82nd in points per play. And that simple analysis From my experience, that gives you a good direction on which side is hopefully the right side. It's a game that, in my opinion, clearly Baylor is the better team.
And do you think you will get to the window and back them?
No, I won't. I think there's bigger plays coming up later in the show here.
All right. So can I even write you down for a lean to Baylor?
Yeah, you can definitely a lean on Baylor. Yep.
All right, there you go. That's TCU
Lean.
Baylor. Let's move on to another Big Ten spot. Northwestern Wildcats 1-0 at Iowa. Hawkeyes 0-1. Excuse me. Northwestern opened up its season with that 43-3 blowout at home over Maryland. 537 yards of offense, 325 coming on the ground. Iowa opened its season with a 24-20 loss at Purdue. Noli, you got your eye on this game. Take it away.
Yeah, this is a matchup that I've somewhat always had my eye on between these two. You know, you look at the last 2 years, Northwestern pulling off the victory just 14-10 in 2018, and the last year Iowa winning 20-0. These games typically are dead under type of scenario, and the reason for it is the coaching. The coaching has always been is always going to be inducive to the under. You look at some outside voices when they talk about Iowa. They said they're as fundamentally sound and disciplined team as you'll ever see. They're never going to overwhelm or confuse you. They got a signature style that they'll never stray away from. Sounds predictable, but that doesn't mean that they're ever easy. You know, so it's just the style of play of what they play. They run the ball and they can stop the run. Those are two things that I'm always looking for, and those are two things that these teams really do really well. Northwestern, when you look last week, they put up 43 points, but we talked about it a little bit before in the show against a Maryland team, which they were able to do pretty much whatever they wanted to. They took their foot off the gas pedal even a little bit at the end, still ran for 325 yards. That's not going to be the case here against an Iowa team. Only gave up 104 yards in their game. And Northwestern's only given up 64 yards rushing per game. This is a team, these are two matchups that pretty much is one in the trenches. They always go at it. I expect this game to go under even at the number that it's at. I think it ticked up a little bit. You're able to get maybe a 46.5 right now, and I like that under.
Noli on the under 46.5. That's available as we speak, the 46.5. Monday NCAA opening lines show. Thank you guys for watching. We're talking Northwestern, Iowa right now. Iowa opening up as 3-point favorites. This is now 2.5-point favorites. Northwestern, Iowa. John Ryan, you have a feel here?
Yeah, I like Northwestern. I like the underplay too. There's a system here. It comes in on Northwestern playing on road underdogs after outgaining their opponent by 250 or more total yards in the previous game. And they have an experienced quarterback under center going against an opponent with an inexperienced quarterback. So again, I'm beating a dead horse, but during these first couple of games, the first 4 weeks, that experience is monumentally an advantage for the Northwestern team. And I think we saw last week, I don't think that was a fluke. They won by that kind of margin. And I'm happy for them doing that. So I think that momentum, everybody's happy in the locker room. Everybody's got to be, feeling pretty good. And I think that'll pay off for Northwestern in this game. Looking at some of the metrics here, final score, projection is roughly 40-20 in favor of Northwestern. So, 80% probability that's somewhere in the final score, plus or minus 3 on each team. So worst case, it could be 38-25. And obviously you add 3 and subtract 3 and you get the range. So in this game here with Iowa, when they allow 28 or more points, they're 20-70 against the number the last 10 years, 1-5 the last 3. When they allow 5 or more rushing yards per attempt, they're 6-20 against the spread. I don't think I need to go on. Total yards per play, Northwestern is projected to get 6.5 or more total yards per play. And when they do, or when an opponent has done that to Iowa, Iowa is 9-30 against the spread the last 10 years. So those are the things I kind of like myself watching in a game, because when like in the Rutgers game, when they got to 28 points, that was one of the parameters. It makes you feel pretty good that you're going to win this bet. And conversely, when things aren't going your way, at least you understand what's not happening in the game that is causing you to lose the bet. But in this case, I'm on Northwestern to cover easily.
Northwestern to cover easily. C-Mac, we have Noli on the under, John Ryan on Northwestern, easy cover. Are you making a move here?
Yeah, I might take this under here. I'm going to stew about it all day. John, did you say you had a projected 40-20?
Yeah.
For Northwestern? Wow. Yeah. So you don't like the under. You like the over here.
Correct.
Okay. I was just double checking when you said when you said 40-20. I was like, okay. Yeah, I'd lean under here. Go ahead.
No, I forget it. Just keep going.
No, I'm leaning under here, and only I think I'm going to pull the trigger. So that's my only way here. Only thing is, in college, like last week, Iowa versus Purdue, 24-20. It just takes another touchdown. Kind of drives me nuts in the mid-40s. But these would be the team. Iowa's the team that I would take under, and I have traditionally over the years. So that would be my lean for sure. Go ahead.
All righty. That's locked in. We have John Ryan on Northwestern, and we have Noli and C-Mac both on Northwestern Iowa unders. Let's move on to another Big Ten spot. We have number 17th ranked Indiana at Rutgers. Both teams open their season with giant wins. Indiana opened the season with 36-35 overtime win at home over Penn State. Rutgers opened their season with the 38-27 win at Michigan State. This is two teams feeling good about themselves. Now 17th ranked Indiana, 12 or 12.5 point road favorites, and this total sitting at 53. Indiana, Rutgers. John, we'll start with you. Great call on Rutgers last week. Are you going back to the well?
I am going back to the well. I think this is I can't believe it's a double-digit line. Penn State, if I have to talk about them, I had them as a play. I like the team. I never saw a game quite like that, to be honest. They outgained Indiana by 277 yards. And yes, they made mistakes. Yes, the media can blame James Franklin for some of the not making the right calls, which is always easy to do when you're a Monday morning quarterback. But somehow Indiana, got that 17-7 lead, and then they held on. And the last play of the game is that is what it is. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but DraftKings refunded all the money line bets on Penn State. So that kind of brings up an interesting thing going forward. But it was a game that, I had coaches in my life, and I try to teach my teams the same thing. It doesn't come down to the last play of a game when you lose. There's so many little things that could have been done better. And in the case of Penn State, there's dozens of things they could have done better, and it would not have come down to that game, that play. We saw Gurley in the pros failed to kneel down at the goal line, right? And he accidentally scored because he had himself in his own fantasy team. But the Penn State kid, that's part of the coaching part. That should have been mentioned in the huddle, that Indiana may let us score here and just go down on a knee at the 5-yard line. And that would have ran the clock down to about 10 seconds. So there's all these little things that can happen. So I'm not taking anything away from the Hoosier win, but I think in the stats, as I like to say, Indiana was far from winning that game. And in the stats, you can say the same thing for Rutgers. But if anybody's feeling good about themselves, it's Rutgers. After all these years of being a doormat, they finally returned the favor, get the win on the road. Now they're going to be at home in New Jersey, and I think double digits is ridiculous. Later in the week, I'll look at the whole gauntlet of data, and this might be one of those where I do the combination bet where, if you're betting $100 a game, you put 70 on the line and 30 on the money line. I just think it's a great situation for the Scarlet Knights.
Rutgers coming off a big win, and John Ryan going back to the window. C-Mac, what do you think about John Ryan backing Rutgers one more time?
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing in this one. I like Indiana. but they're real happy after that win. So it's a good look. And I never call a double-digit dog at home, college or pro. But I don't know. I don't love the spot. We'll see what Rutgers is really made of. Here we go.
Yep.
So it's a real test, and the line I think is about right. So yeah, we'll see the spot. That's all I have on it really right now.
John Ryan backing Rutgers. Noli knows we haven't touched on the total in this spot, sitting at 53 with no movement. Is there any move for you here?
Yeah, I think this is a tough game for me to try to determine. On one side, Indiana's been handling this competition for the most part, but here Rutgers look pretty good here in the first game under Greg Schiano for his second stint over here. They didn't give up much rushing yards, only 50 yards rushing in that game, but still weren't able to produce a lot of yards offensively. They didn't look like a huge offensive juggernaut. I think they'll fare a little bit better against Indiana. Indiana gave up 488 total yards, only rushed for 41 yards in that game. So I understand John Ryan's sentiment. I understand how you can get upset. They were dominating that game, and that game shouldn't have been close. I agree. And I believe that Indiana is the better team. Are they 12.5 points better? That's something that I'm not too sure of. I would lean towards the under here, but I'll be staying away from this game.
One last thing, Jimmy. We were talking about it was unknown who was going to start at quarterback, and Rutgers, Schiano brought in 11 transfers during this COVID period, 2 of which were from Ohio State, 2 from Michigan, and 1 from Nebraska, who ended up being awarded the starting quarterback position, and his name is Noah Vidral. And he had a pretty good game considering he's a transfer and not much time to practice. And that's only going to get better. He's a dual threat. And, those dual threat guys are hard to defend sometimes. And he has a game under his belt now. So that's another reason why I really like what's happening at Rutgers. I mean, they're not going to go 4-4 this year. If they went 3-5, that would be fantastic. It's a step forward to getting to a bowl eligibility again next year.
John backing Rutgers one more time. Let's move on to a big SEC 7 p.m. spot. Mississippi State Bulldogs 1-3 in the SEC. At number 2, Alabama Crimson Tide 5-0 in the SEC. Mississippi State coming off a bye week, so they've had a couple weeks to prepare for Alabama. We last saw them suffering their third straight loss, 28-14 at home to Texas A&M. Alabama 5-0, 5 double-digit wins, coming off a 48-17 win at Tennessee. John Ryan, Mississippi State, Crimson Tide, take it away.
Bet the Alabama Tide. I see this game again as just a complete mismatch, and the points aren't enough. This is one of those years that you can actually make a case that some people are really starting to question Alabama's defense because they've been giving up a lot of points, a lot of yards. But when your offense is as good as what they're putting up, and in terms of numbers, the metrics, these yards of separation from a defender, and I could go on and on, they're right up there. I'd actually put them ahead of Clemson. So it's no joke what they're doing on offense, and this could be one of Saban's biggest or best offensive units that he's ever had at Alabama. So that's the part that I think. If you ever heard somebody say Alabama's underrated, you'd probably run away and hide because that makes no sense at all. But this year, this actually may be the case on the offensive side. And I don't see how in the world Mississippi State is going to be able to contain them for 60 minutes. We've seen teams do a quarter, and you go, oh, my God, this 24-point dog is in the game with Alabama. But then, you go get a sandwich and you come back and it's 40-17 and you wonder what the hell happened. And it's just really hard to bet against Alabama unless you get some situations that are just so strong, and you got 80% of the public on Alabama, and it just sets the stage for a much closer game. But I don't think Mississippi State is that team.
That 365 opened this up as Alabama 32-point favorites. That's down to 31 right now. This total at 64.5. Noli knows Bulldogs, Crimson Tide. Is there a move for you?
I mean, last week I did make a move on Alabama in the first half. I mean, if we want to continue to ride that, I think that's a move. I mean, Alabama looks the part. Mac Jones looks really impressive over there at QB. And for Mississippi State, I think the book has been out. You look at the SEC teams, they've been able to stall them out all for the first game. They went off against LSU, but, I mean, everybody was going off against LSU. Here in this game, I think it's a tough task for Michigan State. I think Alabama continues to roll. I mean, they're scoring in pretty much every quarter, doing whatever they want offensively. They're a very high-powered offense, and I think they'll be able to shut them down, and Alabama's the side, man.
Alabama for both John and Noli. C-Mac, anything for you here?
Same thing. Bama's rolling. I had him first half last week. Sometimes the full games, I don't know. I mean, they look great. I mean, it's 30.5. They probably still cover that. Just throwing that out there. But, yeah, that's all I have here. Bama.
A lot of Bama backers here, even at the 31-point spread. Let's move on to another spot that John Ryan has his eye on. That's the Charlotte 49ers at Duke Blue Devils. Charlotte 2-2, Duke Blue Devils 1-5. Let's see what this line is. Duke opening up at minus 10.5. And you can get that anywhere between 10, 10.5, and 11 right now. And that's, again, the Bet365 opening line for Duke. This total sitting at 56. After opening their season with 2 straight losses, Charlotte followed that up with a 49-21 win at North Texas, and most recently 38-28 win at home over UTEP Miners. Duke coming off their bye week. We last saw them off their 5th loss in 6 games. 5th loss in 6 games, 31-20 setback at NC State 2 weeks ago. John Ryan, you had your eye on this spot. Take it away. What's your angle here?
Well, it's definitely a play on Duke. And just getting the sheet up here, but this is one of those games where I think the Duke covers the spread by more than 7 points. I've learned over the years that if you're going to play around with mathematics, that it's important to have a little bit of a cushion. So turnovers and unpredictable events happen in every single football game that's ever been played, and the 7 point is a block punt for a touchdown that goes against you, a pick 6 that goes against you. Somebody, gets too many pass interference calls and it sets the other team up for an easy score. Those things happen in a game and they're not predictable. So when I get a projection that gives me a cushion of 7.5 or more points, then that gets put on the radar. And this game is definitely one of them. Now, in terms of angles here, Charlotte is 0-7 against the spread. They're on this streak here. And again, this doesn't have that much powerful correlation to the result of the game, but nevertheless, they're 0-7. It has to do with turnovers after 2 consecutive games with a turnover margin of +2. So turnovers, like many other things in the game of football and any other sport, they ebb and flow. So a team may force turnovers at an alarming rate, and we all say, wow, what a defense they were. And 3 weeks, they do amazing things in the turnover department. And then all of a sudden, you want to back them, and you do, and they don't force any turnovers. So you reach these peaks and valleys of performance measures that, I commonly say, reverting back to the mean, meaning the average performance of a given team. That some performance levels aren't sustainable. Alabama's offense, for many teams, would be, a record-setting week. But for them, it's just another week. So in this game, Duke is definitely the better team. They've played a much more difficult schedule. If you look at the rankings, as I know some of the listeners do, always be careful with strength of schedule. And there's a lot of different ways that you can take that into effect and offset it so that the numbers aren't biased for having a weaker schedule than the opponent. And that's pretty critical in some of the mathematics that my models employ. But in this game, it's definitely Duke, and they cover by a touchdown.
Easy cover for the Duke Blue Devils from our John Ryan. C-Mac, what do you think of that analysis?
Yeah, I mean, I think Duke is the better team. I don't want to lay 11 with them right now. They should get this win, but I just it's not convincing for me to take them. Charlotte's not a bad football team. And I don't have a real read. Duke should get their first win here. I don't want to lay 11 with it. Can they win by 18, 20? Can they win by a touchdown? I'm sure. I didn't really dig into this game a lot either as well, but yeah, it's a pass for me right now.
A pass. We have these Duke Blue Devils coming off their bye week. Noli knows 1-5 on the season. Is there a move you want to make here?
I mean, me personally, I'm not on the move, but I think John Ryan makes a very interesting point when you talk about strength of schedule. You look at Charlotte, what they've been able to do. I mean, they get 2 wins against North Texas and at UTEP, and then they have a real close one against Florida Atlantic, which we know is pretty bottom barrel. And even their game against Appalachian State, they lose by 15 points, but Appalachian State gives up 3 turnovers in that game that make that game significantly closer than what I saw on the field. And you mentioned Duke. Duke's been battling. They've been battling in some of these games, just been overmatched offensively. To me, it's just tough. I don't like the way their defense looks. Either defense really giving up close to 400 yards of total offense. I'm passing, but I like the look of Duke. I think that they're far more talented.
Far more talented. John Ryan bullish on the Duke Blue Devils. Noli agreeing. CMAC staying off. Let's move on to a Big Ten matchup. Want to talk about this game a lot. 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Number 3 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. Great start to their season. We were on them at -26. At number 18th ranked Penn State. Nittany Lions with a rough opener. Ohio State opened up with 491 yards of offense, 52-17 home win over Nebraska, and took complete control in the second half of that game. Penn State coming off the shocking 36-35 loss to Indiana. They put up 488 yards of offense, allowed only 211, and lose 36-35. Connor Mack, you've got an angle on this spot. Let's just take a look. Ohio State opening up at -12 at Bet365. They're now at 13. There are 13.5s on the board, and this total at 63.5. CMAC, take it away.
Yeah, I think this one points will be scored here. The total's already dropped from 68 to 60. What's it right now? 60.
It's at 63.5.
Yeah, I think it might go down a little more. I think Ohio State gets theirs, and I think Penn State scores here as well. Clifford, I have a lean. I want 14. It's right now. I can't get it. I think Penn State's a little light. I mean, I like them plus the points, and I'd lean the over. I think Clifford and them score. Ohio State's still an experience, like we talked about, defensively. Obviously, on offense, I think they get theirs. Fields look good. They put up 50. They got that late touchdown for the cover and the over. Oh, I think they already covered with the over. So these are my leans right now. I want to. I don't know if I'm going to get it. I like Penn State if I can get over 2 touchdowns, and I lean to the over as well in this spot. I think Penn State plays better. I think Franklin has them better. I don't know if they win outright. I'm not calling that, but points will be scored, and I got to take the double-digit dog here at home, but I want to get 14.
CMAC wanting 14 for Penn State. John Ryan, what do you think of CMAC holding out for that 14 on Penn State?
I definitely would do that. I think the public is going to come in on Ohio State because they don't have the time to dig into the stats like we do. You get done your week of work on Friday night and you just look at what can I bet on tonight, and that's fun. Yeah, it's fine. But I think that the point is that Penn State, despite the miscues and things that are correctable, and things that James Franklin can correct in a week, is giving value here to Penn State. You have one team looking like unbeatable. You have another team that couldn't beat Indiana. So in that case, it comes down to I'm going to have a lean towards Penn State. I can tell you flat out, based on the numbers, probably later this week, it will be a full-blown bet on them, and I'll go to the window. What's missing here is that it's in Happy Valley. And for those that don't know, it's 111,000 people, and this is a night game, emphasizing the word night game. Now, I'm not kidding when I say this, there's over 400 acres of tailgating going on starting in the morning, and it is Happy Valley. There's no, disruptions. There's nobody, beating up an opposing fan. It's none of that. It's like everybody gets along and has a great time. But then when it gets into the stadium, you can't even hear yourself think, let alone somebody trying to talk to you that's sitting next to you. And that's where these teams that are on the road at these humongous stadiums, Tennessee comes out as another big one. Of course, Michigan, Ohio State. They have such an advantage with no crowd noise. It gets at the student end of stadiums like LSU, Penn State. We know the stadiums. They get so loud that you cannot change the play at the line of scrimmage, and you have to go with a silent count. So that's a concern here for this week because Ohio State's offense is obviously elite, one of the best in the country. And not having to put up with that noise that the Penn State crowd always likes to bring, it's a little scary. But for now, I'll lean Penn State, and we'll leave it at that.
Noli knows up next. We hear CMAC waiting for the 14 for Penn State. John Ryan leaning Penn State. Noli knows is there a move here for you?
I mean, I think this game's a bit interesting when you look at the total. I mean, the CMAC talked about it dropping a little bit, and that's more so what's happened over the last 2 years. You know, both games staying under the total and by quite a bit. You got a 28-17 total last year, but I think a lot of that, you know, you see 3 turnovers from Ohio State, 3 fumbles. I think that's what ultimately kept Penn State in the game last year. And I mean, here at Ohio State, they look really good. I mean, Fields comes out, they're firing on all cylinders, being game 1. It's a bit of a surprise that they were able to do that. And Penn State, I think they play a little bit better than the final score indicated. You know, I mentioned only 41 yards rushing against, 170 through the air. Their defense is significantly better than what you might have saw. And then Ohio State giving up 210 yards rushing is a spot that they need to answer. Those are the question marks up front for them. And so there's a lot of question marks for me. That's ultimately what I see here. So that's what's keeping me off the game. I would lean towards the under in this game, actually, but I'll stay off.
Noli leaning towards the under. All right, let's move on to an 8 o'clock spot here. Number 24 ranked Oklahoma, 3-2, 2-2 in the Big 12 at Texas Tech. 1-3 in the Big 12, 2-3 overall. Oklahoma coming off their second straight win, an easy 33-14 win at TCU. Texas Tech coming off putting an end to their 3-game losing streak in the 34-27 win at home over West Virginia. Oklahoma, 14.5-point road favorites, and this total at 67. CMAC, you got your eye on this game. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I just think it's too much. I've liked Texas Tech a few times. I'm 1-1 with them. I didn't take them last week, and they won. They gave up a ton of yards for something. Still beat West Virginia, where I knew a lot of people were on West Virginia, and I didn't pull my trigger with Texas Tech. I think it's too many with Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler, they're going to get theirs. The over might be in question, too, here. It's up to 66.5. You know, these Big 12 games. Bowman's a big key too. I don't know if he plays, but the backup, Columbi, I don't even know what his name is. You're the man. Headquarters, Jimmy. HQ. How do you pronounce it?
I don't trust myself.
Henry Columbi or Columbi. Anyways, Texas Tech with Thompson will run it. I just love it here. You can get a 15, 14.5. It's 2 touchdowns. I've been off Oklahoma. Last week, I didn't take TCU. The number was too short. Oklahoma played great, and I don't know how good TCU is. But Oklahoma looked really good. The 33-6 win, I think. But I faded them. They're 3-9 against the spread, Oklahoma. Their last 12, especially on the road. I've faded them at home, laying big numbers. I'm definitely fading them here. So give me Texas Tech in the 14.5 or 15, whatever you can get.
CMAC on Texas Tech at plus 14.5. No, why don't we go to John Ryan here? John Ryan, what do you think of this double-digit home dog?
I'm completely neutral on it. I wouldn't even want to venture a lean. It's one of those games that also brings in the backdoor cover possibility because Texas Tech can score points, and nobody in the Big 12 is, as Connor Mack said, has shown that they can stop anybody. So I'll just pass. I'll leave it at that.
A pass with Oklahoma, Texas Tech. Noli knows. You making a move on this one?
Yeah, definitely not. No defense. I don't like getting involved. I mean, albeit Oklahoma did look a little bit better defensively last week against TCU, but I mentioned it before, TCU not looking that great this year offensively. And, I'm I'm off this game. I don't really like it. I mean, Oklahoma has been stopping the run a little bit, but still giving up ton of yards through the air. And that's another thing for Texas Tech, giving up almost 350 yards through the air per game. I mean, that's Oklahoma's strong suit. So, I mean, I wouldn't touch this game.
Do you have any lean towards the side? What do you think of CMAC on the plus 14.5?
I mean, I can understand that with Oklahoma on the road. They play much better at home. But I just can't trust that team and the defense. They are playing significantly better than normal. I don't know how much that says, but Texas Tech against tougher opponents have been getting punched around a little bit. But I think it's just tough for me to decide. I wouldn't lean either way for me. Sorry.
No problem. Let's move on to a game that you do want to move on. Louisiana Raging Cajuns, 4-1, 2-1 in the Sun Belt at Texas State, 1-6, 1-2 in the Sun Belt. Raging Cajuns bounce back from their 30-27 home loss to Coastal Carolina with a big 24-20 win at UAB. Texas State coming off their 5th loss in 6 games, 52-14 at BYU. Louisiana Raging Cajuns open up at 16.5-point favorites. That's down to 15.5 or 15. This total at 56.5. Noli knows you're looking at this Sun Belt, Fun Belt action on Saturday night. What's your move?
I mean, you know what it is, Jimmy. I'm wearing the sweater that I'm here on a mission, you know what I mean? And I'm here to make these unders great, and this is what these teams do, you know. Combined 9-3 to the under. Lafayette team that predominantly is going to run the ball. You know, they run the ball with their quarterback and a lot of rushing attempts. And the QB Lewis really struggles through the air. You look last week versus UAB, he was just 3 of 8 for 28 yards in the first half. A guy that I really don't trust his arm. But what they started implementing a lot last game and the second half against Coastal Carolina was a lot more quarterback runs. He can't get it done through the ground, but they run at a slower pace. You know, you look at the last 3 games, they're only averaging 58.7 plays per game. That would be dead last. But overall, they're 89th out of 101 for 62.6 plays per game. They're getting some key guys back also on the defensive side. Defense that only gives up 22.6 points per game. They're getting a key linebacker back that they got back last week, linebacker Farrod Gardner, who led the team with 9 tackles instantly. And they also get a D lineman back to go along with him. And the defensive side that continues to get stronger and stronger. On the Texas State side, not a whole lot to like about them. They're 1-6 straight up, 3-4 ATS. They're getting pounded quite a bit, but another team that plays at another slow pace. 69th out of 101 for 69.9 plays per game, but even lower their last 3 here. 64.3 in their last 2. They're 5-2 to the under. They're just a team that really just hasn't been able to get it done offensively. Their third down conversion rate over the last 3, just 20.5%. Haven't been able to stay on the field much. So to me, I feel like the better team in Louisiana Lafayette will dictate the pace, and that pace is slow, and they're going to run the ball, eat up clock, and I think this total is just too high, you know. So I'm going to take a shot at the under 56.5.
Under 56.5 in Raging Cajuns up at Texas State for Noli. No, CMAC, what do you think of that spot?
Yeah, I think that's right on the number here. This one's hard to read. Texas Tech, a Texas State team that's not very good. BYU beat them 52-14. BYU's good. South Alabama beat them 30-20. I think it stays in that area. Lafayette's beat them 7 in a row and 7 straight against the spread. It's a big number here on the road. So it's a pad. It's close. I like the Raging Cajuns, but I'm not going to lay that on the road right now in that game. And I lean a little bit to the under. But even that, I don't know if I can take it. But it's right. I think that's right on the over-unders. That's right where I'd put it, like 56, 57 in this game. So
cash action bets backing Texas State. CMAC staying off. John Ryan, is there a move that interests you? Louisiana, Lafayette.
I would definitely lean to the under. I like the idea of Lafayette Raging Cajuns controlling the clock with their ground game. 55% of their plays this year have been on the ground. They're ranked 19th in the nation, averaging 5.1 yards per rush. And they average 35 rushing attempts a game and 176 yards per game. So it stands to reason that they're going to run the ball even more than that against a suspect Texas State defense that ranks 65th in points per play in the nation. That's going up against the Cajuns, who are 35th. On the other side of the ball, you got Texas State offense at 63rd, going up against the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns at 29th ranking of yards per point allowed. So despite the offense being superior by the rushing game, you also have the better defense by even a greater margin with the Raging Cajuns. So I like that under idea that Nolly has.
We have Noli on the under, John Ryan liking it, and Gas Station saying under of the weekend in NCAA football. All right, let's move on to our final game of the show. Thank you guys for rolling with us here. NCAA football opening lines, early leans, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Mountain West action. San Diego State Aztecs 1-0 to start the year against Utah State Aggies 0-1. San Diego State opened their season with a 34-6 win at home over UNLV. Put up 424 yards of offense, 287 of them coming on the ground. They allowed just 186 yards of offense to UNLV. Aggies opened up their season with an ugly 42-13 loss at Boise State. They were outgrossed 450 yards to 203 yards. San Diego State opening up as 7.5-point road favorites. This total at 45.5. Noli, you were looking at this game closely. What are you doing here?
I mean, once again, you talk San Diego State. That's something that you're going to see a lot is me talking unders. This was the most profitable team to the under last year, hitting at like an 83% clip. And here I expect the same thing this year. They ran the ball 46 times, good for almost 300 yards. And you look, their quarterback, Carson Baker, 12 for 25, under 50% completion rate for just 137 yards. I mean, the guy, he looked a little bit better in the first half. They did take their foot off the pedal after taking a big lead. I think it was like 24-0 in the halftime last game. But you've seen it with their defense. This is a top 5 defense nationally, at least predicted to be. Last year, they only gave up 12.7 points per game. They returned 7 of those starters back on this team. And that's that's always been a stable for their team is their defense. You look at their head coach, Brady Hoke, comes back for his second stint here with San Diego State. And that's it lets you know that they're not trying to change their identity. They want to continue to be who they are, play defense, ground and pound, and win ball games. And that's their recipe. And for the other side, for Utah State, they're replacing their top passer, their top rusher, and their top receiver. A lot of things to ask for, and you saw they struggled against Boise State to do just about anything. They only were able to put together 203 total yards of offense, only 92 yards through the air. And to me, when I see this, kind of similar to what we were talking about in the last game, I expect San Diego State, albeit on the road, to be able to control this game and control the clock with their running game. I expect this game to be kind of similar what you've seen in years past. Last year, 23-17, around the 40 total. That's what I like to see. And this is another under train with San Diego State that I'm going to be jumping on board and riding pretty much the whole season.
Noli knows on the Aztecs Aggies under. John Ryan, little Mountain West action to close out the show. San Diego State, Utah State. Anything for you here?
It's San Diego State. They have the better team on both sides of the ball. Utah State is making, although just playing one game so far, they're making a leap up of substantial size to take on San Diego State here. And this is a game that can get away from them pretty quick. San Diego State here, looking at the projections, could exceed 600 yards of total offense. Needless to say, if they do, in most cases, you cover the spread when that happens. Rushing could be both rushing and passing could be over 300. That's another scenario. Unfortunately for Utah State, their scenario is that both rushing and passing could be under 175 each. And that's not a recipe for success or a winning bet. So despite the line, I would have a lean on San Diego State here.
John leaning towards the Aztecs. CMAC, last game on the card before we get into best bets. Is there a move that interests you? San Diego State, Utah State?
I'd lean a little bit on the under. Noli has it at 46.5. Both teams are going to want to run it. Utah State doesn't know what they have yet. With Love gone, I was all over Boise State. I thought they're bringing back so many experienced guys last week. I laid it. They won easily. San Diego, it's a little – I mean, it's over a touchdown. I think there's a little lean that way. I don't love that either. I mean, they played UNLV, and I know how bad UNLV is. So let's not, not so fast, my friends, So, but I'd lean to the under here. Aside, I don't really have it. I think San Diego State's the better team. Utah State, like I said, bad, trying to get offensively going, and their defense is better than their offense, but still not there yet. So we'll see in week 2.
All righty. There you have it. We've broken down a ton of games here on our Opening Lines show. We're going to move over to our best bets. We got the Thursday, Friday best bets, and I locked them in right here. Let me pull them up. Thursday, Friday best bets, both John Ryan and CMAC moving on Minnesota Golden Gophers. And then we had the South Alabama under for Noli Knows. Those were Thursday, Friday best bets. Let's get into Saturday best bets. We're going to start with John Ryan. John, take it away. What is your best bet on Saturday's action?
Well, I'm trying to decide between the Big Ten opportunities. I'll be betting all the ones that we already discussed. Boy, it's tough. Northwestern. I'll make that my best bet of the trio of Big Ten games that I like.
Northwestern for John Ryan. CMAC, best bet for Saturday action.
Just go with what I saw first, the Temple Tulane over. I mean, I got a 58.5. Get it. It's still 62. I still like it over. Both teams score a bunch, I think.
And sorry, I'm going to put it in the number that you got. So you got 58.5?
I got 58.5 last night, and I'm surprised. I knew it was going to go up, but I couldn't believe it was 62 by the time the show or this morning. So.
All righty. And then our man Noli Knows, best bet Saturday.
My best bet, without doubt, Louisiana Lafayette, Texas State under 56.5.
I like it.
ULL, Texas State under. All right. Absolutely great job. Follow our guys on Twitter at John Ryan Sports 1, at Connor Mac Picks, and at Noli562. And then join us on Saturday. We have our big kickoff show at 10 a.m. Eastern. Thank you guys so much for all of your hard work. Our experts, thank you. We will see you guys again throughout the week, but we have no show without you great cappers in the chat. Big shout out to Viper NB, Alex Ramirez, Cash Action Bets, Ron Crawford, Gerald Martinez, Adam Lastman, Big DJK, Gas Station Sushi, Robert Cherry, Boston Nick, Dennis Garcia, The Czar, Michael Ervelina, Ick Schnizzle, Frederick Brown, Nathan Cerna, Robert Allen. Thank you guys so much. Let's have a big week. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and we will see you guys on our Saturday kickoff show at 10 a.m. Get paid in full. Great job, you guys. And we will see you again soon.
Cash.
Get paid.
Please get those unders.